What's going on, everybody out there? Is Ron Brown, LMC, the People's Fitness Professional, and we got the brother Cosmo L in the building. Thank you for before we start, let's run this commercial. I like this commercial to be run every time, about 2 to 3 times. Let's run this commercial.
Peace family. Welcome to NYP Talk Show. This is more than a podcast. It's a conscious platform rooted in truth and culture. From the 5% Nation, Nation of Islam, Moorish movement, and Masonry. Our mission is to reclaim our narrative and uplift the African diaspora with real stories and real conversations. Support us through super chats during live shows, donations on Cash App, GoFundMe, Patreon, or Buzzsprout, and by repping our official merch, available on our website and right here on YouTube's merch shelf. Every dollar, every super chat, every hoodie builds the movement. This is NYP Talk Show.
Yes. We are in the building, brother Cosmo L. We're here to talk about some serious things. The FBA, adults, African American, why Moorish American. I chose this subject because these are pretty much hot topics online, and I want to know myself. I want to get an explanation from the Grand Sheik and see his perspective on this subject matter. So let's take it away. We got foundational Black Americans. Do you know anything about foundational Black Americans? That acronym? You know when it was created or anything like that? Any information on
that? From what I understand, it was created by Tariq Nasheed. He was pretty much the founder and the coiner of that phrase, and that it is designed to identify a particular group of people that are basically would be descendants of slaves and would be in line with being able to receive reparations, so on and so forth, a classification of our people in order to put them in a situation to be able to receive reparations, and to identify so-called Black people as opposed to just all Black people in general, all melanated people in general, similar to the ADOS, which was in the title as well, American Descendants of Slaves, identifying those who were actually the victims of the Atlantic slave trade and or the negative repercussions of Jim Crow, so on and so forth. So in essence, they're both modern day social constructs created for the purpose to be able to classify those group of people that are deserving of reparations for these crimes against humanity.
Okay. Aket Kaba as Ankh, peace to you. So Tariq Nasheed, foundational Black American, I could have sworn he created that. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he created that. They have a flag and everything, correct?
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, it's a movement now, but he is the founder of it. He has codified what that means to be, and it has become a popularized movement.
Right. Okay. Now the thing about Tariq Nasheed, which isn't like the Moorish movement, and no disrespect to Tariq Nasheed and everyone who holds that flag, the FBA flag, but like the Prophet included our people here in North America. However, it was encompassing of all, really, of all our people in general, so in humanity overall. So, but the FBA is more about, okay, foundational Black Americans, so to speak, African Americans. And after a while on the internet, it became kind of divisive, if you will. So, what's your take on that?
Islam, well, again, I don't look down or like yourself, talk down or disrespect anybody that's trying to do something.
Right.
We all have our portions of understanding, and for I actually honor people who are actually trying to do something, whether they be leaning on their own understanding or whatever. They're doing something. So for those people that aren't doing anything, to criticize people that are doing something and they're not involved in the movement at all, then there's no place for that. However, those people, there are people who are doing things as well and involved in the movement as well. And these people have the ability to critique other people that are doing other things and provide their view. So, what the Prophet Noble Jew Ali brought, everything that you see happening in North America, every movement that you see for our people towards identity, knowledge of self, and self-determination starts with his movement. It's an outgrowth of his movement. I'm talking about in North America. The Nation of Islam stems out of that. Out of that, obviously, comes 5%. Due to El Hajj Malik El Shabazz being a part of the Nation of Islam and him leaving the Nation of Islam and taking a more political approach, you produce people like H. Rat Brown, known as Jamil Alameen today, Kwame Ture, who was known as Stokely Carmichael back then, who espoused his views of Black nationalism. And from out of that came organizations like the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense and other Black Panther parties like Lawrence County, Alabama Black Panther Party, which was actually started by Stokely Carmichael and or Kwame Ture and H. Rep. Brown. So
hold on, you know your stuff, brother. All right, yeah, you're right about that.
Praise Allah. And so what we have to realize is that there's really no need to reinvent the wheel. What Prophet Noble Jew Ali brought was an extension of our emancipation, which stemmed from the Emancipation Proclamation of President Lincoln, which you might wonder, how does this relate? Well, because the reparations that people are seeking starts with the broken promise of the 40 acres and a mule, which comes from Sherman Order Number 15 from William Sherman, and approved by Lincoln, who was Sherman was a soldier, I believe Confederate soldier, or he was, either way, it was approved by Lincoln in order to return this land to and compensation to the those who had been enslaved. And so this was a part of the emancipation. It was a part of emancipation. Then there was compensation. And this got sidetracked when Andrew Johnson got in and, vetoed and put everything to the side. So where does Prophet Noble Jew Ali come in? Because there's three aspects when you're freeing a slave. Number one, you have to emancipate them. You have to compensate them, but you also have to return to them their knowledge of self. Because reparations is not only just monetary. You have to, the root word in reparations is repair. So if what you've taken from a person is their knowledge of self by labeling us Negro, Black, colored, and these other terms, and separating us from our identity and our culture, then in order to repair that, you have to return that as well. So the Moorish Science Temple of America, founded by Prophet Noble Jew Ali, which most people think is religious, it does involve largely, it is religious, it involves religion or divine creed, but the purpose of it politically was to return and repair these people back to their knowledge of self, and to teach them that they're not Negroes, they're not colored, they're not black, they had a legacy, they had a heritage, they had a land, they had a flag, and now that they are emancipated, they have a right to know about these things and choose to return to practice their culture. So Moorish Science Temple of America has already laid out the plan for repairing the mind of our people. And Prophet Noble Jew Ali established the body politic, which is the self-governing aspect for our people here in North America to govern ourselves. So what's left is, and we were emancipated physically, so what's left is the national, the reparations part, or what the Prophet refers to as compensation. So in order to do that, to this end, the argument then becomes, well, who's entitled to this reparations? Is it all descendants of Africa, right? Like ADOS in America, American descendants of slaves. It's a particular group of people, those who are slaves. But then not only those who are slaves, but also those who, from the negative effects of Jim Crow, so on and so forth. So the Prophet tells us in Acts 6, we're teaching our people their nationality of our divine constitution and bylaws, and teaching them that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, Ethiopians, that we're to proclaim our free and national name, so on and so forth. So there's no need to really create we know who the descendants of slaves are, right? You don't, and one can do this. That's fine. That's their program. But you don't need things like these identifications. And I'm gonna go deeper into them later, because I understand them as social constructs and what they're trying to achieve. But you don't need to identify who the slaves were, because the descendants of slaves are the ones who carry the labels Negro, black, and colored. If they weren't descendants of slaves, they would not have had these chattel terms placed upon them, right? So Prophet Noble Jew Ali already addressed that, because he said, hey, these names were placed upon the Moors in America in 1774, 5 years before slavery was legally documented, and officially placed on our records in 1779 up until 1865. So he's already identified the targeted population, those who were labeled with these chattel terms, these terms that allude to slavery. So if you got Negro, if you got black, if you got colored, if you got mulatto, if you got any of these things on your birth certificate, or your grandmother or your mother have these things, you would already be in line for compensation. So it's already there. But when it comes to, but again, people are reinventing the wheel, because when we look at foundational Black America and ADOS, these acronyms, and what they've done is they've went to the Office of Management and Budget in order to try to have these social constructs placed on the record for so-called Black people. But Office of Management and Budget are the same people that profiteer in the terms Negro, Black, colored, Ethiopian. When you look at the bottom of an application, you see OMB. That's the Office of Management and Budget, with the federal mandate to use these terms for statistical data. So, I could keep going, but to answer your question, the Prophet already identified the targeted group. The Prophet already dealt with the returning of the knowledge of self to our people. And the step of reparations is something that we need to address, but it needs to be addressed in a particular way at law, because there's only one lawful way to do it. So I'll end there. For any further questions, we can go further into it.
Okay. Before I go into any questions, I'll take it to the chat. But Sister Aket, thank you, appreciate you. I appreciate you. Um, we are focused on lineage here. Is not divisive. It's acknowledging our recent history and the restitution that is owed by the establishment that still exists that did it.
Well, the thing about that is, and I agree with everything she says. I think where people get the divisive
I think
aspect,
this is a brother right here.
what the brother says, pardon me, it within itself is not divisive, but the way people perceive it from different angles has caused divisiveness, because some people feel that to have things like foundational Black America, so on and so forth, it conflicts with the views of Pan-Africanism, that we're all one, and it's creating divisions. And so these are the arguments that are out there on the table. But what I want to address, and what they said is lineage, right? Because lineage is a particular thing. Lineage is the root word in lineage is line, and that line is your bloodline. All right, this is very important. I understand the concept, but this is important because there is no bloodline that leads back to foundational Black America. That's a recent social construct. All right, your bloodline and your lineage leads back to what your mother was, and what her mother was, and what her mother was, and what her mother was, all the way down the line. That's lineage, the line, so that you can find out, where does this line begin? And that's how you trace your lineage. You just don't stop anywhere on the line, and you can't create a new line. The line is already there. You have to, lineage means you're following your line all the way back to where it begins. And foundational Black America, as a term for lineage, only begins with Brother Tariq Nasheed, who's not even a woman. So we know the bloodline can't go back to there. So the concept of it all, and the restitution and reparation, is fine. But to create another social construct, when part of what we need to give back for the repairing is the social constructs and chattel terms that they created for us, is diametrically opposed to the concept itself. So I think everything is there, but that lineage and that line is the question. And this is where we're going to have differences. And to add to that also, when you're dealing with reparations, generally reparations are given to nations, not individuals. Now, in modern times, there have been groups of people who have received compensation styled as reparations, like the Tuskegee Airmen and other small groups of people who suffered particular things and have won reparation. So, there are some foundational things that deal with law and that deal with bloodline that need to just be set right on course for this movement to continue, which I think the movement does need to continue. The Prophet didn't use the word reparations. He used the word compensation, because you need to be compensated for labor, and it was free labor. It wasn't a traditional war type situation, how the U.S. dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then the Japanese and the Japanese people received reparations, but they were placed in internment camps, and they were kidnapped, and they were held. So, compensation is a thing that can be given to individuals themselves. So I think the term is very important, because if you're dealing with reparations, then you're dealing with repairing of a nation itself. And that means that our brothers and sisters have to come together under a nation or a national name to receive it, which again, Prophet Noble Drew Ali already established that. So I think we're just getting away from, instead of reinventing terms, why don't we study what our forefathers did, understand it, and then build on top of what our forefathers did, like every other nation. Every other nation traces their movement back down the line through a lineage to another leader that started that movement. And then, it may be some outgrowths, but to just cast aside an actual term which would link us with a real live bloodline is something that we have to really address.
Okay, so why not African American? I want to go into that before I go into any other questions.
Well, I mean, again, it's very simple. African American is a social construct created by Jesse Jackson. It's the same thing. Someone says, hey, we should call ourselves this. And then it is created as a social construct. And, people accept it. It become a movement. And in Jesse Jackson's case, this social construct was accepted partially by government. And so it's and taught that this terminology was adopted by some areas of government, some areas of schooling. But if you notice, when you listen to the news, they still call us black, right? Black male. So African American is not even something that has even been accepted universally, not by the system and not by our people. Black. When black was accepted was during the 60s. It was used, but when the Black Power movement came, prior to that, most people accepted the term Negro. And you had the Negro Improvement Association. If you listen to the elders back then, if you called them black, that was fighting words. So we keep moving from these social constructs when there's only one person that actually came and established and brought us back and connected us back with a bloodline and a real history that we can trace back. Mm-hmm. Without a shadow of a doubt, we can trace back to a people, a bloodline, and those our ancestors were, that is true. Okay. Now, I see here in the comment, our ancestors did use African American, but it wasn't accepted as a term until it was popularized by Jesse Jackson. Just like black, you heard Marcus Mosiah Garvey using black, but it wasn't something that was put on the records. All right. So when we're dealing with these social constructs, we're dealing with records. But even aside from it being used and it being accepted as an actual term that it began to be used in governments and in schools and other places, African American does not define who the descendants of Africa are in this country, because Africa it might be able to be used. It's used as a social construct. A social construct, another word for that these days are ethnicities. But ethnicities are not identities and they're not nationalities. And when you look at the Office of Management and Budget, the mandate, they'll tell you that these terms, black, colored, Indian, all of these terms that people are using have no anthropological basis at all. So we've just been taught and we've become accustomed to using these terms. But they'll tell you, if you just go to Office of Management and Budget, the ones who actually use these terms for statistical data where you're marking it on your application and saying this is what you are, they'll tell you there's no anthropological proof of this at all. But we're not reading the mandate of Office of Management and Budget, so we think it has some identity and some historical significance when it's just a modern day social construct. Africa's a nation, a continent of many nations that doesn't deal with nationality and bloodline. And American, that part is true because we're born on American soil. But what type of African, right? Some of us aren't even descendants of Africa. Some of us have been in the Americas. I won't say not descendants of Africa, but didn't come over here during slavery and have been in the Americas for thousands of years.
You're talking like the Turtle Island. Those brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the comment says, Africa is where we were brought from. Not all of us were brought from Africa. Very few of us were brought from Africa. Many of us came here on our own during previous voyages, and many of us have been on the indigenous, have been in Americas and other parts of the land for thousands of years and have established heritage here. And in fact, North, South, and Central America are also considered provisional Africa, because wherever you go and you expand to your inhabitation, you have a dominion, which is Northwest, Southwest Africa. But Prophet Noble Ali teaches that it is spread across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, Central America, so on and so forth. So, and historically, these are considered provisional places of Africa as well. But again,
I just want to, I don't mean to cut your wisdom, but the brother Wise Dome TV, go check out his channel. He's saying that that's not true, not trying to be rude, but that's false. Now, what are you saying that's false, brother? What are you saying that's false? I think he's talking about the fact that North or Central and South American, yeah, exactly. Okay, we are all West and Central African. I don't think he's refuting that, brother.
Yeah, he has to understand what I'm saying. First of all, we have to understand this, that we're the original people of the planet Earth.
Right.
The whole planet belonged to us. All right. We were all over the planet before there was this social construct known as Africa. Africans don't call Africa Africa. Africa was named Africa by the Europeans after Scipio and Aemilius Africanus at the Berlin Conference. Since I've been a child being with the Moorish movement, I've met various delegates from Africa all over, governmental, and they say, where is this place you call Africa? Because many of the people in Africa have their own name for Africa, which comes from their tribal lines and their national lines. So Africa is not a general term for everyone that comes from Africa. Now, he says we're not here. We weren't here for thousands of years. Now, I don't want to get into just a debate with this one person, but if a lot of times we claim to have knowledge of self, and we do, and we know a lot of things, but sometimes we end up adopting the European ideology when it comes to who we are and where we come from. Because in order to say that we're limited to say West Africa, then you have to adopt a particular idea, which is isolationism. And so isolationism says that all of these connections between the cultures just happened on their own, right? We all decided to build pyramids, right? North America decided to build pyramids. South, Central America, Asia, everybody decided to build this same geometrical structure aligned with planets, with hieroglyphs that mimic one another. And it just all happened in isolation. Where that doesn't make sense. What makes sense is that there was one culture that spread out across all of the continents and carried that culture with it. And which is why we see pyramids, which is why we see mummies, which is why we see identical so-called West African culture in North, South, and Central America. But these things have been present here for thousands of years. So you can't say that we weren't here for thousands of years and that we are the progenitors of the planet and say that we're not, that all of us come from West Africa, a small little place on the planet. When you have this culture that is vast, this pyramidian culture, this mound building culture that is spread all over the areas which I'm talking about. And Islam.
That's one thing that you know, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna disagree with this. The fact that we have Egyptian, we have pyramids in Egypt, and then we have pyramids over here, and they're all related. You know, I would have to, I would need more information on that to verify that.
So there's a good book called When Rocks Cry Out, and you should get that book. But a lot of the things I can't remember the author's name, but When Rocks Cry Out. But if you just read a lot of what he quotes is from J.A. Rogers, who we're very familiar with. If you get 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro, most people just read the facts. But if you read the footnotes, it's tons of information in there about the correlation between culture. And I'll just give you one. This sign here, known as the Hamza or the Hamza. You see this sign. This sign is known to be a Hebraic sign and an Islamic sign, right? The hand of Fatima with the eye in the middle, right? Right. Hebrew, we know, with the original Hebrews, goes back what? At least Horace Butler, Islam. Thank you. So we know the Hebrew culture has a calendar that goes back 5,000 years, right? Now, this hand with the eye in the middle, known as the Hamza in Arabic, and the Hamza in Hebrew, this same sign with the hand and the eye is the symbol that is used by the Mississippian culture in North America. This same eye, this same hand, it means the same thing. There are stones like the Back Creek stone, and there's many stones where there is what they call ancient Phoenician writings. And if you get my book, The Moabite Key, I have the actual ancient Moabite, what is called, they call it Phoenician, they call it ancient Hebrew, they call it Arabic. I have all the characteristics in there. And these are found, now I'm talking about archaeological and anthropological evidence. These writings are found here in North America, and these writings predate the 400s BC. It's before Christ. So look into the Back Creek stone, look into the Possum stone, look into the Hamza of the Mississippian mound builders, and look into the geometry and the placing of the pyramids of North America, because they align with certain astrological aspects that the pyramids in Egypt and other places align with. So there's too much for it. If it would have just been, oh, pyramid here, pyramid there, that's one thing. But there's too much correlation in the construction, in the hieroglyphs, in the language, in the the signs and symbols. It's all there. Many people may not have delved into that aspect, but once you begin to delve into it, 30 minutes to an hour, you'll understand exactly what we're talking about. It's not just the pyramids themselves. It's the culture surrounding the pyramids. It's the language surrounding the pyramids. It's the figures, the spiritual figures surrounding the pyramids, So, I mean, this isn't about that, but that's a side note that we can't just limit ourselves to what we've been taught in Africa. We've been taught that we all come from Africa. We've been taught that we all, because we've been psychologically displaced from our heritage here. There's a good book called, I believe, The Colored People of North Carolina. And in that book, they tell you how this term colored was used by the government to take away the heritage of the melanated Native Americans who had been here for thousands of years. So this social construct, the children grew up being colored, but the mother and the grandmother grew up being Choctaw, Washita, Cherokee, so on and so forth. Many of these tribes trace their lineage back to Africa, but thousands of years ago. So there's a plethora of information out there these days in the information age for anyone to remain ignorant on this subject. If it interests them, and they want to say, well, where's the proof? You can 30 minutes, some study. You don't even have to go to a library, and the information is pretty much there.
That's why I like to state right down the middle, like neutral, because I don't know everything. I've studied a lot, and still, even with studying a lot, I still don't know a whole lot, right? So I don't I don't say, it's like this or like that, you know what I mean? Unless I can verify with actual facts and proof. So there's I would say a thought that indigenous or Native American people, no, not Native American people, or so-called Black Americans who call themselves Native Americans, or indigenous Indian types of people, are lost and they don't know what they're talking about. So what do you say about that?
Well, I'm like you, my brother. I'm learning and still learning, and I like to leave room as well, and that's wise. I only speak on what I know from study and from experience. When it comes to that, I mean, there's extremism is never going to be right. You have our people that are on the extreme with that, and then you have our people that are on the extreme with the descendant of Africa thing. The balance is in the middle, right? We have lineage because we are from all over the planet. Our lineage extends beyond any particular landmass, and so you have to just deal with the individuals and their histories, and again, that lineage. Not everybody's going to go back to the same lineage per se. That's why I say the Moorish Empire, because the Moorish Empire, we're all Moors in the empire, but there are many tribes and many nations within that. So you might go back to the Cherokee. This person might go back to the Washita. This person might go back to the Fula. This person might go back to the Igbo, right? Not even to speak about the correlation between Santeria and Yoruba and all of those things. We have to understand that I have my history book. Somebody in my family did a wonderful job. We have our book that goes back to 1735. So I can trace my lineage back to the various tribes that we were a part of. And like I said, many of these tribes in their histories trace their lineage to the east, meaning Africa and other places. Not all of them. Some trace them back to Asia, some back to Egypt, some to which is in Africa, some back to Arabia and other places. So it stands to reason that many of us do have this heritage. I think the false narrative, what we've been taught, is that the only reason we have this heritage is because we were stolen from Africa, ran away, and married in with the Indians, so-called Indians. To me, that's the false narrative, because I know of voyages from hundreds of years and thousands of years, and in studying language and in studying archaeology. And this is not just me saying this. There are authors like Leo Weiner, who went to Harvard and was a top scholar until he started talking about this. And then he was crazy. There was Barry Fell, America BC, another book, who talks about all of the various groups that was here, from the Vikings to the Egyptians to the Phoenicians to everybody, who again was a scholar. And when he started talking about these subjects, become crazy. There are various European scholars who spoke on these things, but were marginalized because of racism in this country. So this information is not new at all. This information has been expounded upon by European Occidental scientists and scholars. It's just that, again, not everybody is aware of everything. And many of us who have accepted these indoctrinations, we talk about we don't want religion, but we've accepted these ideological indoctrinations regarding our culture And then when something else comes along that doesn't align with that, we begin to behave dogmatically, when we should be able to be open, and we should be able to leave a door open, to study who we are and what we are. And I think we'll find more. And I do agree with sister or brother. I don't know if it looks like a sister.
That's the sister.
Yes, Sister Ankh, that our lineage is too deep to put in a box. That is because our lineage goes back. Our spiritual lineage goes back to the beginning. We are really not the body or the soul. This only becomes relevant to when we're dealing with nationality. This becomes relevant when the world was reorganized into national governments. So we can go back very far, but politically today, the world is organized in nation states. That's why you have the United Nations, and everyone who has a nationality has a seat at that table. And within the Universal Declaration of Rights of the United Nations, everyone has a right to a nationality. And so politically and economically, nationality is a tool for people, especially people who have been disenfranchised, to come together and sit at the table of the family of nations and deal with the affairs of their group, their national group, like every other national group. So though I agree we don't want to put it in a box, we still have to realize that in this modern world, everyone has something that so-called Black people are missing. And if we think about it, perhaps maybe this is the reason why so-called Black people are treated the way that they're treated and are not involved in world affairs, because there's a criteria that everyone else is living up to that we're not. And so it's on us to gain that. It's not on anyone else to give it to us. Self-identification is the rule. So when you have a man like Prophet Noble Jew Ali that was on this page back in the early 1900s, even before the United Nations, it was the League of Nations back then. He was addressing that concept of nationality. And that is something that you proclaim in this modern day. However, our lineage goes back beyond the nation state. It goes back beyond the founding of the United States and so forth. There's still much rich wisdom to be learned, but to be on the same, footing as others politically in this particular structure that exists right now, there's something that we're lacking in that everyone else seems to have. And for us to overlook that, I think would be negligent on our part.
Okay, now as far as Moorish American, as our nationality being recognized by other nations, how far has that gone in government internationally?
Islam. So there are many even bills in Chicago on the floor right now that are dealing. There's one actually that deals with reclassification and actually taking off the so-called Negroes, Blacks, and Coloreds, and putting Moorish American there so that there is something actually real. So nationally, there are many bills right now that are seeking to restore our identity in the form of a nationality by Moors. There, you can study various bills in Chicago at this time. I can send you some links if you want to share it later on.
Yeah.
As far as internationally, I think what's important, because nationality internationally, it's again, I just quoted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 15. Everyone has a right to a nationality. And then also the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, Declaration of Rights of a Child, all make it plain that nationality is important and everyone has a right to one. And self-identification is the rule. Nobody else can tell you what your nationality is or who you are. This has to be something that is self-identified amongst the group that are proclaiming that particular nationality. So it's really not for anyone else to recognize who we are but ourselves. And in recognizing ourselves and in practicing our culture and demonstrating who we are, by sharing our culture with the world, this is how other nationalities become aware, and this is how you develop relationships with other nationalities.
Right.
Here in Hawaii, demonstrating as a Moorish American, I've developed various relationships, and people are beginning to understand. Out here, they have a word known as popolo, and popolo means black. And this is the term that they use for our people out here. And so I spoke at the University of Hawaii 4 times, 2 of those times during one Black History Month and the other 2 during another Black History Month. After I spoke at the Black History Month program, one of the professors wanted me to come back to their class and speak to the class about it. And while speaking to the class about nationality, there was an elder there, and he said, well, when we say popolo, we don't mean it like how the European means it. You know, we just say this. I said, well, have these people no name of their own? You know, have you ever asked them what they want to be called instead of just presuming, because they're just adopting what the Europeans said and putting it in their own language, but they don't realize that that is a colonial mindset. So I think we have to understand self-identification is the rule. And this goes back to what I was discussing with the brother when we were talking about self-governance and international recognition. There's a type of self-governance or sovereignty which is recognized internationally, known as negative sovereignty, which means that, yes, other nations recognize you. However, you're still a non-self-governing group. Positive sovereignty or self-governing, for those who don't like that word because it's been misused so often and weaponized against us, self-governance, positive sovereignty or positive self-governance means that, yeah, you have that international recognition, but you also have the ability to govern yourselves. You have the institutions, you have the systems, you have the things that are going to protect you and your people. And I think that that's what's most important about having a nationality, is building those systems and those institutions and things that we need as a nation. And through that and having that, we will have honor amongst other nations. But as long as we don't have that, then it's almost just like begging another nation to recognize us, and we still can't. We're still a people that can't govern ourselves.
Right. Now, I want to go to this question.
Mm-hmm.
This was a good one. Should Moors be attending the Organization of American States instead of the United Nations? Because the United Nations is European in its policies. The OAS concerns with the Americas.
Islam. I think yes. I mean, I think both. You know, we should be attending both. I mean, primarily because yes, the American states, this is the same thing. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that when you look at the United Nations, it's more Asiatic nations than any other nation. Of course, it is governed by European policies because the United States is the biggest and baddest on the block. But that's true for the OAS as well. America's still the biggest and the baddest on the block. And so I wasn't speaking in the sense of attending these things per se. I think we need to attend our own organizations and govern ourselves and worry about that. I was only speaking in the sense of the sentiment of international law. And yes, the OAS holds the same sentiment. They have a human rights document as well that echoes the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as well. Internationally, everyone agrees that nationality is a right. I think attending these things is no problem because it's being seated amongst the affairs of men. But I think what we most need to attend is organization of Moorish states and Moorish organizations who are divided and at odds with one another, because no nation or group of nations is going to take us seriously as divided as we are. So we have some generational curses that we need to heal. However, there are groups of progressive Moors, small groups who are attending the OAS and are in contact with the OAS and establishing bilateral and trilateral agreements with other nations and interacting. And all of that's fine as well. Sometimes all Moors don't have to be doing the same thing. Everyone, but what a positive progressive group of Moors can do can open doors for the rest of us. And that's why it's important for us to be united. So I think the emphasis as far as my draw is we need to work and internally and organize and create again the institutions and the systems without any apology of what anyone else thinks, because that is generally the determining factor of a people who are actually free, people who are actually self-governing, and a people who are actually functioning as a aggregate of men and a society founded on law, which is the second definition in Black's law. The first definition is just the people. We as the people, we're people. We are a nation. What the part we have to get to is organizing ourselves in organizations founded on law, like the Moorish Science Temple of America and others, so that we can deal with our internal affairs as a group of Moorish American nation of people.
I would like to address someone in the comment now. Leon Coleman is just going off in the comment section. It sometimes, we got to address these things. So Leon Coleman, it seems like he doesn't know a whole lot about the movement and things like that. He's just probably tired, needs some water, food, or some love. So, but we're going to give you some attention right now. So, Moors can't even win a court case. What you talking about? Africa, not even. Okay. So I want to address that part right there.
And this is the thing. Again, we have to be careful of adopting European views while thinking that we're conscious, because there are a lot of Moors who are doing very positive things. There are a lot of Moors that are united. There are a lot of Moors who are winning cases. But what the European shows you is the scourge of our society. And so if your idea of who we are is based on that, then there's a very serious problem. Now, I want to go to something that he said, which is actually true. Africa not even united. What this guy babbling about. Yeah. America's not even united. You can have a nation and not be united. Nations are made up of various interest groups. That's the diversity. That's what moves things along. But so we don't have to be united on everything. You could be a Hebrew, you could be a Moor, you could be a Christian, you could be a Muslim. The only thing we need to be united on are the things that we need, that we all need. Like we all need education that is for us. We all need healthcare that is geared towards our genealogy. We all need systems of protection, and we all need, especially with, you see what's going on with the food stamps and all of these things, we all need our own collective farming and our own food. So these are things that, it always surprises me, because people go out every day and they work in institutions where people are divided, but yet they get the work done for that institution. You look at a hospital. Everybody in the hospital is not the same religion, is not the same creed, is not of the same ideology, but they run that hospital, don't they? They take care of those patients, they get to business, and then when they leave, they go back to their personal ideology. So all we need is that level of professionalism amongst ourselves. We don't have to be united wholeheartedly and believe the same thing. That's a fallacy. That's what they've been preaching to us all this time and making us think that. That's that dogmatic religious perception that we have now superimposed onto Pan-Africanism and Black power and all of these other things. We have to get out of that. We have to realize we're one people, and if we can't agree on a thing, set that thing aside and find what we can agree on.
I like that, brother. That's peace. That's peace. So now, Moorish American. Um, my question is, why Moorish American? Like, why can't we be something else? Let's say, I don't know, whatever, West African American. I don't, you know what I mean? Like,
So I have a book. I have two books. One book called Murder Moor, Kemet Until Now, which goes into the origin of the word Moor and shows how it's traced back to our language. That's the first thing people are going to want to know. Oh, Moor is a European word. Get my book, Murder Moor. I don't have all the time to explain it in this. If you really want to know, Murder Moor, Kemet Until Now. And then I wrote a book also known as Blackamoor. Now, most people find it hard to understand, well, how do we just go from Moor to black? Like, black, but how? Most people have never heard Moor. They have now, maybe because the information age and whatnot. But most people don't really realize that. And my book, the title of the book illustrates it, because first we were known as Moors, which is the European pronunciation of the ancient word for it, which you can find in my book. Then the European started to call us, instead of Moor, he started saying Blackamoor. And this word Blackamoor was used up until the 1600s. And most people don't know that. But why did they use the word Moor? Because they knew who they were talking about. Mm-hmm. They know better than you who they were talking about. But then when they decided to fully denationalize us and commit linguistic genocide, the Moor drops off and we're just black. And you can study the morphology of this word, from Moor to Blackamoor to black. Now ask yourself, where did black come from? Black comes from negro, which was the Spanish La Castas, which is a caste system. That's how the black was added to the Moor. So why were they using the word Moor? Because they knew the people that they were dealing with. They didn't have a question about it. To them, everyone was a Moor. And when you study the Moorish Empire, you'll see that when we talk about certain places being Morocco, other than that small little area over there, the Moroccan Empire, people just don't understand. Egypt, people know Egypt was a vast empire, but they don't understand that after Egypt fell, the Moorish Empire rose. And everywhere that was under that empire, whether they had a national name, a tribal name, they were still under the term Moor in the empire. If I came from another land and I set up in America, that becomes provisional Morocco. So this is a term that returns us back to a land. It returns us back to a flag. It returns us to a culture directly before we were labeled so-called black. Now, we could try to jump back 10,000 years and find a term, but why not deal with the term that we ourselves use? Yosef Ben Yachanan tells you that we ourselves use the word Moor. Mm-hmm. He didn't say the European. You don't know who Yosef Ben Yachanan is? You have to look him up. He said, we use that word. They got it from us. They used that word and replaced it with black. That is our national name directly prior to being enslaved and being labeled Negro, black, and colored. So when we get emancipated from being labeled Negro, black, and colored, then what are we going to go back to? Are we going to hedge hop over the word that we were using for ourselves directly prior to slavery? Or are we going to jump back 10,000 years and try to find some name in the hieroglyphs? It doesn't make sense. We don't have those rights and those names in the hieroglyph. We have rights in the name that we were in directly prior to when they disenfranchised us from who we were.
Now, thank Nicholas Bay. I appreciate the $10. Really, really, really appreciate that. After the Civil War, 1865, 1877, Reconstruction, Moorish majority populations in the South held office, ran city and state governments in South Carolina, particular.
Islam. This is very true. When you study the Reconstruction era, and that's around the Reconstruction era, what he's talking about, we have many Moorish politicians. You know, this is around that time when the 40 acres and a mule and Sherman Order number 15 and all of these things were coming into place. The Freedmen's Bureau was designed and created to now free us, repair us, and compensate us. But once Andrew Jackson got in, all of the land was taken back, given to Confederate plantation owners. We were disenfranchised and stripped of our titles and taken out of government. And we were forced into these chattel to continue under the chattel terms of so-called Negro, Black, and colored. And that's why we're in this condition today. It's very important for us to understand the role that nationality plays, and that the knowledge of self that Prophet Noble Drew Ali returned to us. It wasn't until he returned that to us that we started getting back into government and helping people get elected and controlling our own affairs and beginning to build this nation for ourselves, which is why they tore it down, and it's where it's at right now. Prophet Noble Drew Ali was the first victim of COINTELPRO and the Moorish Science Temple of America, even though it wasn't called COINTELPRO at that time.
Wait, you got to explain that, brother.
Yes. Well, most people are familiar with COINTELPRO from the 60s, right? And dealing with the so-called Black Panther Party, because COINTELPRO was designed to marginalize and destroy so-called Black movements towards independence in America. However, this same practice was practiced with Marcus Garvey and practiced on Prophet Noble Drew Ali. It wasn't called COINTELPRO at that time, but the whole COINTELPRO program was taken after the programs and the marginalizing of the Moorish Science Temple of America and the United Negro Improvement Association, the ACL. So that's why they have files, the FBI files on who? Prophet Noble Drew Ali, FBI files on Marcus Garvey. Many of the Moors quote these FBI files as fact and truth, not realizing that these are the same people that were marginalized, and these were the people that were arresting the prophet and creating false narratives and articles about the prophet. He was the victim of a character assassination, and he was the victim of an actual assassination because he died when he was released from prison. Now, how many people do we know that we know what goes on in prison? So if I hear that he died shortly after he got out of prison, I'm going to think what I know, that something happened to him. They put him through the 3rd degree, and he died of his injuries when he got out. So, and he speaks on this of how people were trying to get in control of the movement and how he was under attack. And when you look, he had the Moorish flag upside down in a sign of distress. So we have to realize that the FBI doesn't keep files on people for no reason. And this is a pattern with our leaders, and it's been a pattern ever since Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Our leaders have been assassinated. Our leaders have been marginalized. Our leaders have been demonized. And it's unfortunate that our people tend to go for that, because we're so willing to accept the narrative of the European and how they demonize our leaders, but we're happy to accept Trump. We're happy to accept George Washington, and regardless of the fact that he had slaves, regardless of the negative history. When you look at the difference between the European and the difference between us, you can look back at all these presidents and all these leaders and see a very decrepit history of these people, but they don't highlight that. They highlight what these people have done for their nation, and they build upon that. Our people, we emphasize the negative things, that reflections that our leaders may or may not have been demonstrating. And as a result of that, we decide to not even build upon the positive things that they set in motion for us to build upon, which is why we keep going backwards, or which is why we keep sidestepping, because again, like FBA and ADOS, we're always trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think that what they're intending to do is a very positive thing. I just think it still plays into the same creating of social constructs and terms for us year in and year out, when we need to be returning to more original terms and genuine terms that we can actually trace back in history and see ourselves directly before our enslavement and our disenfranchisement and the linguistic genocide that was perpetrated upon us.
I like how you put that, linguistic. Indeed. So now, Moorish. Now, as far as like the history and the term, or the term that we called ourselves, where can we find that exactly? In history.
All right.
Like,
But
what year was the flip? Was there a flip?
Before I answer that, if I may, one of the comments, I can finally see the comments here. I just want to address Leon Coleman real briefly. He said Moor's been scamming. So what? Italians been scamming. Japanese been scamming. You don't judge the whole Italian people by the mafia. You don't judge all Japanese people by the Yakuza. So why are you judging all Moors by some Moors that have been scamming? There are many Moors that are not scamming. I'm not scamming. I know plenty of people that are not scamming that are doing great things. So again, we have to stop demonizing our people because there's a few people doing some things, and then we want to make a sweeping indictment and generalization of the whole people. Generalizations are generally ignorant. So we have to stay away from those things. Insofar as Moor and your question, I would call people to go. There's a great etymological dictionary online known as Etym Online Dictionary. And Etym Online Dictionary, you can research the, and again, it's in my book, Blackamoor. You can look up Blackamoor by Cosmo L, Cozmoel, and in other various books, Moor's What They Didn't Teach You in Black History class, another book of mine is in there. But if you go to Etym Online Dictionary and research when they started using the term black, research when was the term Blackamoor used, and then research the origin of the word Moor. In between those three, you can actually see when the linguistic genocide began to take root. And it's generally about the 1700s when you're dealing with linguistics. Keep in mind, the first English dictionaries were not compiled until 1735 by Nathaniel Bailey. So when we're dealing in the European world, this is 1700s, and the English dictionary is when it begins to take root. But Prophet Noble Ali tells us in the Circle 7 that these names were placed upon the Moors in 1774 up until 1865. In our Constitution and bylaws, it says 1779. That's because they were placed upon Moors in 1774. But remember, the United States didn't even get its independence until 1776. So each state used different terms. Some use Negro, some use colored, some use this, that. So by 1779, these terms they were used customarily, but by 1779, these terms were codified and were placed on our state records at law. So if we're looking at it at law, we can say 1779. But if we're looking at it linguistically, within the late 1600s to early 1700s, you're going to find the switch from Blackamoor to actually black. And before Blackamoor, the word Moor goes back up until ancient times. Etym Online Dictionary will tell you it goes all the way back to the Greek. And the Greek will tell you that they adopted the term and brought it into the language from a native term. And that native term is present in Egypt and present other places around the world as Mer, M-E-R.
Okay, all right, check. And also, Abdullah addressed this in a podcast. So you can check out his videos under civil letter civil letter is in the playlist. Civil letter. I got to make a playlist for the brother Cosmo L, so you can look at all Cosmo L's videos as well. Now, any other questions in the chat? I don't want to take up too much of the brother's time. We already 10 minutes over. If you have any questions in the chat, we got time for a little bit. I don't know if you got time for one more question, brother.
Yes, we have time.
Okay. Okay, so we got Moors always say we need to stop calling ourselves Black American. Why the hell do we have to practice Islam to claim it? See, it's a lot of misconceptions, man.
Yes. I was just looking at that. He said, why can't you practice Christian, African spirituality, etc., and still claim more? I've had brothers try to recruit me, so on and so forth. Brother James, you can. Moor is a nationality. It's just like, but Moor's national faith was Islam. So you do have Moors that are going to practice their national faith, but it's a nationality. And let me explain it. If you go to India, the national faith is generally, you're going to find most of the people practicing Hinduism, but not all Indians are Hindus. You go to China, you're going to find people Buddhists and Jainists, but not all people are Buddhists and Jainists. So you don't have to practice Islam, but it is in our history, that is our national faith, and some people do choose to practice that. Now, unfortunately, some Moors push that dogmatically, that you have to do this and you have to do that. Noble Jew Ali teaches us that we are Moorish Americans because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. That's it. You're born in America, you're descendant of Moroccans, ancient Moors. That qualifies you as a Moorish American. Now, joining the Moorish Science Temple of America is getting with your government and getting with the body politic that was established by Prophet Noble Jew Ali to carry out certain functions, governmental functions, as like trustee positions, so on and so forth. So you're already Moorish American. It's just a point of, if you proclaim it and acknowledge it, and where do you want to fit in the government? Where do you want to just be a member or quote unquote citizen of the government? Are you interested in being an official? So there are a lot of misconceptions. I would tell people not all Moors are alike, just like any other nationality. It's like saying that you have to do karate if you're Japanese, or you have to do kung fu if you're Chinese. That's your personal decision. Your spirituality is your personal decision. However, I will say this: Prophet Noble Jew Ali brought Islamism, which is not a spirituality, it is a religion. And that religion has a political place in this movement because of free exercise clause and freedom of religion. So it's a tool that all people of other nationalities use in the United States to protect themselves from the civil religion, which is practiced by the majority of the citizens and is generally if you're not a part of their civil religion, you have to be a part of something else that has laws and things that you're following. Otherwise, you're just de facto in what they're doing, So religion does play a role, but your faith and your spirituality and your religion is your own. If I may say this as well, like you're in the United States, and if you're living in the United States, to have nationality as it is on your passport as United States, or citizenship, so to speak, your religion is your own, but you're still going to work within certain parameters of that particular government. And so I mentioned civil religion. Most people don't even realize that they're practicing civil religion. So look into civil religion and you'll see that most people are indeed practicing a type of religion, regardless of who they are, and they may want to choose to do something else.
Okay. Last question. I thought this was a great question. This is a great question. Wait, hold on. Oh man, yo,
the Ottoman Empire.
Wait, before we go there, there's so many. Like, I think I need to do more Moorish podcasts, because people don't understand what this really is. It's mind blowing to me sometimes. But anyway, was the Ottoman Was the Ottoman Empire Moors? Because the Prophet states in the 101s, question number 81, Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror was a Ottoman Sultan. Was the Ottoman Moors? That's a great question, brother.
Mm-hmm. So we have to understand the Ottoman Empire was a multinational empire that included Moors. All people in the Ottoman Empire were not Moors, just like all people in the Roman Empire were not Roman, just like all people in the Moorish Empire were not necessarily of Moorish lineage per se. One thing about the Ottoman Empire, which is very specific, is that when the Moors fell in Spain in 1491, and the Moors who couldn't ransom themselves began to be sold into slavery. Those who could get back to Africa through the Straits of Gibraltar went back to Africa and established what is known as the Barbary States. Study the Barbary States all across the coast of Northwest and Southwest Africa. It was the Ottoman Empire. The Barbary States were under the protectorate of the Ottoman Empire. If you read the study the legend of Redbeard. And so the Barbary States governed themselves, but had international representation in the Ottoman Empire, in the world empire by the Ottomans. And the first, J. Rogers talks about the fall of 1453 Byzantine, which you're dealing with Muhammad the Conqueror. And he says that the first one over the gate was a Moor known as Omar bin Hassan. And this is in 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro in the footnotes. You got to read those footnotes. So Moors were definitely a part of the Ottoman Empire, but it wasn't limited because the Ottoman Empire was a Muslim empire. And when you ask the Ottomans of their population, they give you the whole entire population of all the Muslims on the planet. Now, that being said, there are pictures, various pictures of Moors of Ottoman Turks or Turks prior to the 1700s, and you'll see these pictures, and they're very melanated. So, also when you're dealing Ataturk, not Ataturk, but the founder of the Turkish Empire was known as Kara the Black. You can look that up, Kara the Black. So,
with the how do you spell that?
Kara, Kara, the Black. He was the founder of the Turkish of the Turks. So when you're dealing with that, the origin of Turks is melanated, but during the time of the Ottoman Empire, it was a multinational empire, and Moors were definitely
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, brother. Because that was a question. That was just something that was always on my mind. I never understood it really.
Yeah. So you have more the Turks. You have again, it's multinational. You have Moors that were Turks. If you really want to get deep into it, and this is something, study the Sumter Turks of North Carolina. These were Moors of North Carolina, and they called them Turks. They were known as Sumter Turks. Mm-hmm. So Sumter, North Carolina. So you had Turks there, but you had Turks over here too. So Turk is one of those terms that can be generic, meaning Muslim. But again, the Ottoman Empire was multinational because it was a Muslim empire. They were the chief protectors of the creed at the time. They represented the Moors in Europe. Mm-hmm. True protectors of the Islamic creed. Yes, indeed. With Muhammad I, who was not Muhammad the Conqueror. Muhammad I was prior to Muhammad the Conqueror, because Muhammad the Conqueror, or Mehmet, was Mehmet II. Mehmet I was the uniter. He was known as the uniting. He united Islam, whereas Mehmet II is the one who came and did the conquering. So we're actually dealing with two Muhammads there.
There we go, man. Just like I said, as much as I studied, I still don't know a whole lot. There's so much to learn.
You and I both, brother.
Thank you for the demonstration this evening. And if I think we're done with the questions, man, I could go on and on and on and on for another hour. But I know you have things to do. I also have some things to do. I'm trying to eat a little earlier before I go to bed. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So just putting that out there. Anyway, thank you, brothers and sisters, for checking us out this evening. I really appreciate you, Cosmo L. Let's just do this real quick. Give them your social medias and places they can find you.
So you see the name up there, Cosmo L with a Z, COZMO space EL. I'm pretty much on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, on Amazon, Cosmo L Books. If you search my name in Amazon under books, you'll find a lot of my writings. I do have a YouTube as well that I've been using lately, and I do have a playlist of the various interviews that I've done, and I also have a playlist of the recent speeches that I've given as well. So you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and if you want literature, I've written over 22 books. 15 of them are still are still published and on Amazon right now on various subjects, from the Fez to the etymology, phonology, morphology, history, even ethics and Islam.
Islam. Thank you all for coming out this evening. Really appreciate you. The next time we have a podcast, it would be Wednesday, and I think it's with Abdullah Bey and yes, Yasril. Thank you, brother Cosmo, for coming out this evening. Thanks to everybody on the chat, and we are out of here. Peace.
Peace, family. Welcome to NYP Talk Show. This is more than a podcast. It's a conscious platform rooted in truth and culture. From the 5% Nation, Nation of Islam, Moorish movement, and Masonry. Our mission is to reclaim our narrative and uplift the African diaspora with real stories and real conversations. Support us through super chats during live shows, donations on Cash App, GoFundMe, Patreon, or Buzzsprout, and by repping our official merch, available on our website and right here on YouTube's merch shelf. Every dollar, every super chat, every hoodie builds the movement. This is NYP Talk Show.